Welcome to Legends, a series that delves into the lore within Horizon Forbidden West. In this video, we set our sights on examining the most fearsome warriors in the Forbidden West, the Tenakth, a society founded on the deeds of those long since gone, honored by a culture of bravery and combat. After their tribal ancestors first made their way west from the cradle of Eleuthia 9, they would stumble upon a ruin of the Old Ones that would shape their identity as a people. The remains of the Mojave Battlefield Memorial Museum, dedicated to the tragic events of the Hot Zone crisis of the 2030s, exposed these peoples to the actions and deeds of those they would dub as the Ten. Through fragmented records of the museum's holo presentations, or visions, they learned of warriors that battled across jungles, tamed deserts, and took to the sky. Though in actuality this group was known as Joint Task Force 10, the manner in which these recordings were corrupted would come to be interpreted as Join the Tenakth, and with this shared identity, the tribe was born. Despite their shared reverence for the Ten, these peoples would eventually find themselves divided, each taking on an identity of the region they would settle, along with a specific aspect of the Ten's exploits. Though separate, each society would follow the same hierarchy for the majority of the tribe's existence. Meritocracies founded on martial prowess, with ranks and titles steeped in the military tradition of the 21st century. The most skilled warrior within the clan would lead their fellow Tenakth as commander, a rank earned through battle and could be challenged at any time if their strength was ever in question. Beneath the commanders are the squads, small, close-knit groups of warriors that are deployed and fight together. Beyond battle, these squads will tend to the families of fallen companions, ensuring their well-being after death. These groups would each take on a symbol for their squad, commonly identified by an animal totem. Much like the Old Ones before them, these tags would serve to distinguish each squad among their peers, along with terminology and gestures of the ancient past. After a warrior's fighting days were behind them, some would take on the role of chaplain, a guide to younger generations, passing on the lessons they had learned from battle, life, and the legends of the Ten. Though the tribe is often known for its propensity towards violence, loyalty and honor go hand in hand with combat. Though outlawed and mostly unnecessary among the Tenakth at present, orphans made from battling clans would be claimed by the victors, not as prisoners or slaves, but adopted and taken in to be raised as their own, a sign of mercy and kindness despite clan differences. Fallen foes would be honored by the victorious, tasting of their blood, to honor the martial deeds they had achieved in life, and so their prowess and story might live on. These traditions, like many others, would be misinterpreted and vilified by those not of the West, earning the Tenakth the reputation of cannibalistic savages by those in the East. Being that the written glyph and paper records were never cultivated among the Tenakth, another means of documentation rose to prominence within the tribe. Through the grinding and processing of certain stones and minerals, such as ash blood, the art of inking one's flesh became the principal way of displaying one's triumphs among all Tenakth. Though all begin their journeys as bare-fleshed youths, all Tenakth aspire to live a life worthy of covering one's skin in deeds deserving of remembrance. Even the main form of recreation for the tribe, machine strike, serves to hone one's mind for combat, strategy, and tactics, a truly never-ending pursuit of martial prowess. Beyond shared customs, separate clans would form their own distinct rites of passage and means of survival. Those who would inhabit the eastern edge of the clan lands would become the Desert Tenakth. These warriors sought to embody the deeds of the Ten in their exploits of the Nevada ambush nearly 1,000 years before. Rather than shying away from the inhospitable lands, they embraced the challenge and would establish their capital in the ruins of an ancient solar electric facility that would become Scalding Spear. Smaller settlements would also be founded, with an economic system centered on a water exchange, drawn up from an ancient system of the Old Ones at the clan capital. As the lifeblood of their people, those outside the capital would travel to exchange their wares and resources for water brought up from the wound in the sand a way of life that has persisted through the clan's present day. To the northwest among the Shearside Mountains, the Sky Clan came to be. High above their enemies, these Tenakth would pride themselves on creating devastating defensive positions, strategic scouting vantages, and near impregnable strongholds to keep their enemies at bay. Atop a mountain of rubble created by the bombing of Yosemite National Park during Operation Enduring Victory in the 21st century, the clan would build their imposing capital, a place that would offer their people shelter and security for generations. The Bulwark. No matter the turbulent and often warring state of the tribe, this fortress stood strong, never failing. For aspiring warriors of the clan, they would emulate a feat of the 10, a challenge of endurance and teamwork. And so, they embark on the March of the 10, a grueling and dangerous climb where a pair would attempt to summit a mountain where the 10 had fought against the machines long ago. If successful, they would claim a blood-crest flower that only blooms atop the peak and descend with proof in hand. Only then would they truly join a squad and earn the respect of their fellow warriors. In the jungles of the Southwest, the Lowland clan would stake their claim, a vibrant and treacherous landscape that would test the clan at every turn. These Tenakth would learn how to move silently through the undergrowth, lay traps, and find food among the many varieties of poisonous plant life. They would build their capital in the swamplands not far from the coast, and from the mud and reeds, Thornmarsh would rise. At the settlement of Fenrise, soldiers were trained, and when ready, a challenge of survival would put them to the ultimate test. Beneath the carcass of an ancient Horus lies the Valley of the Fallen, a place where only the brave and capable attempt to endure. For those looking to earn their place, a lowlander must venture into the valley and survive. For 10 days they must persist against the elements and machines. If still alive, they return reforged and ready for all that will lie ahead. For much of the tribe's history, these clans fought many wars amongst each other, creating a fierce but fractured culture. In this, the need for sustenance and manpower became evident. This would bring about an unlikely relationship with those whom they shared the West, the Utaru. Though a predominantly peaceful tribe, their skill in agriculture was undeniable, enjoying plentiful harvests year after year. Rather than creating another enemy for themselves, trades between the Utaru and the clans were arranged. At first, the Tenakth would offer a seasoned soldier to the Utaru to live among them and train their defenders in exchange for gifts of grain and sustenance. Eventually, food would be replaced by people, as fallen Tenakth warriors needed to be replenished with fresh recruits, and the Utaru were willing to accommodate for more veterans to train Plainsong's defenders and maintain a peace with their tribal neighbors. With their ranks revitalized, the clans would not only set out against one another, but fellow tribes as well. The earliest recorded conflict we're aware of in what would become a bitter history between the Tenakth and the Karja would come during the reign of the 6th Sun King, Uriv. Departing the Sundom, chasing the sun into the west, he and his cohort appear to have met their end at the hands of the Tenakth, who would claim the king's prized bow as a trophy for all who would later wield it. During the reign of the 9th Sun King, we're told the Tenakth horde, though the exact clan was not specified, crossed into the Sundom. Though the battle was fierce, Sun King Renan, the Firebird, and his army claimed victory over the invaders, leaving the monarch gravely scarred for the rest of his days. These clan wars and other conflicts would continue for generations, claiming countless lives in the pursuit of conquest. A history heavy with blood, death, honorable deeds, and vanquished tyrants. Until a warrior from the Lowland clan would eventually come to prominence and change the tribe's history forever. After completing his training at Fenrise, a young Hekaro would ignite his legend among the Tenakth. Instead of surviving just 10 days in the Valley of the Fallen, he would emerge victorious after 3 long weeks. Hekarro would go on to train with the living legend Azureka the Enduring and claim the rank of commander of the Lowland clan. With the power of his people behind him, he set out to claim the greatest prize among the tribe, the Memorial Grove itself. On the warpath, he would defeat any rival who stood before him, only feeling the sting of defeat on rare occasions, as he and his host were once held to the north at the stand of the Sentinels. It wouldn't be long until he was once again victorious, and after many hard-fought battles and his rivals defeated, the Grove was his. In this moment of ultimate conquest, an unexpected event far to the east would change Hekarro and the entire culture of the Tenakth. When the extinction signal sent from Nemesis reached Gaia Prime and forced her self-destruction, the subfunctions of Zero Dawn were scattered across the tribal world. As Hekarro stood, the triumphant conqueror, Gaia's subfunction, Aether, would arrive in the ruins of the museum and take refuge beneath the grove. In this moment, a new vision of the Old Ones was triggered, never seen before, for Hekarro alone to witness: the Faraday exhibit. An address by Colonel Anne Faraday in the aftermath of the Hot Zone crisis that painted the hope of a nation without want or war, and peacekeepers who would work to see this through. Marshals of the New Southwest that, after warring with machines, would strive for unity through courage and conviction. When the message concluded, Hekarro drove his spear into the very spot he witnessed the vision. Inspired, he would be resolved to unite his people in the pursuit of peace among each other, and in combat against the ever more aggressive machines of the world. Rising above his rank of lowland commander, he would take the title of chief to stand above the authority of each clan's leader. Much like Anne Faraday before him, Hekarro too would create the rank and role of marshal among the Tenakth, inspired by what he viewed as protective spirits of the ancient past. Remarkable warriors leaping into battle from on high like the 10 before them, who would compete against one another in the arena of the Memorial Grove, striking down machines to mark their skill and earn the honor. These proud few would surrender any previous clan ties and allegiances to serve the will of the chief directly. These marshals would serve as roving lawgivers of the chief's will, part magistrate, judge, and executioner. Together, Hekarro and his marshals would create a delicate peace among the clans, no small feat to be sure, and one that would come at a critical time, as an old enemy of the tribe would appear once again. For the Tenakth, the derangement forged solidarity and unity against the machines. For the Karja, it would create a zealous and unyielding need for blood. In Meridian, Sun King Jiran would launch his campaign of brutality across the land, as his red raids sought to appease an angry sun and eventually fuel his own monstrous grandeur. Against the might of the Sundom, few could offer up meaningful resistance. The Nora and Banuk summoned enough strength to keep them from pushing too far into their lands, but suffered greatly nonetheless. Oseram freebooters and warlords fought bravely, but unspeakable casualties were still suffered on the northern frontiers of the claim. Jiran even became so bold to send his armies to where only the sun may go, and relentlessly pillaged the Utaru in the Forbidden West. For years these atrocities continued, but eventually the sleeping giant of the West would awaken once more. Tenakth squads that first made contact with the Easterners were made an example of, captured, strung up, and burned alive. Though Hekarro had resolved himself to a creed of warring against the frenzied machines of his land, the gruesome crimes against his people spurred the tribe to action. Led by their chief, Sky, Desert, and Lowland Tenakth would march as one to war against the Sun's Chosen. The fury that followed was like nothing the Karja had ever known. With Karja High Command overconfident in their military prowess, Hekarro quickly introduced them to the native language of his people, violence. In the field, he and his warriors would shatter Jiran's forces. The army of the setting sun would be crushed at their forward base of Cinnabar Sands, southwest of the Utaru capital of Plainsong, with only unyielding Fashav and Nil known to have survived the onslaught. The combined might of the Flash Brigade and the Southern Spear would also fall at the Battle of the Burning Blooms, massacred where they stood. Soon the Tenakth, along with Utaru guerrilla fighters, had driven their enemy back to the Karja's stronghold in the west, Barren Light. An impressive defensive position to be sure, but it too would prove no match against the ingenuity and skill of those who followed the Ten. A squad, led by the accomplished Sky Clan warrior, Kotalo, would scale the cliffs surrounding the fortress. Once on the eastern side of the walls, he would open the gates from within. Hekaro's forces and Utaru allies would storm Barren Light. Together, the once great seat of the Mad Sun King's power in the west was razed, and his forces defeated. A mighty victory, and one some wish to pursue further. Those like Hekaro's greatest marshal, Regala, wished to press their advantage and march their forces all the way to Meridian and destroy the Karja once and for all. But with the invaders driven out of the west, Hekaro elected to spare his people from further war and would return to the clanlands triumphant. This decision would sow the first seeds of division among the tribes since Hekaro had taken power. Still hoping her chief would eventually decide to march east, Regala would bite her tongue and remain loyal to Hekaro. Even when a Karja warrior on the brink of death was brought before the chief and won the right to become a marshal through the Kul route, she swallowed her disgust and continued to serve. But even the finest soldier has their limits. Time would pass. Far to the east in the city of Meridian, Jiran was defeated, and a new Sun King would rise in his place. His second son, Avad, became the 14th in the Radiant line, resolved to mend the bridges burned by his father. In this, he would send a messenger into the west to treat with the Tenakth. A message of peace was brought before Hekaro, with a proposed embassy between the two tribes and what was left of Barren Light. When the chief was agreeable to such a path forward, this was the last insult Regala could bear. Before her fellow marshals, she would challenge Hekaro, a battle to the death for the honor of her people and control of the tribe. A challenge Hekaro could not refuse. Despite her skill and fury, she was bested that day. However, instead of claiming her life, Hekaro would spare her, unable to sever the unspoken bond between them. A sign of mercy, but to Regala, a final insult, in her eyes only cementing how weak Hekaro had become. Though no longer a marshal and exiled from tribal life, she was far from the only one who wished the destruction of the Karja. Though her rebellion had gained support, her cause was most likely doomed to fizzle out in the desert without the tribe behind her. A fate all but certain, until a group of Oseram tinkerers with a similar vendetta approached Regala with a unique solution to turn the tides of war. With an alliance forged with Asera and the Sons of Prometheus, the might of the machines was on Regala's side, and her fury would soon be unleashed upon those who spurned her. As Regala gathered strength in secret, Hekaro continued to work towards spreading the influence of his people. With his law offering stability among the clans, thoughts of further expansion were acted upon. At the chief's behest, and the direct order of lowland commander Ateka, an expedition was sent to the south to evaluate the potential colonization of the burning shores. Though no other tribe had laid claim to the region, due to the inhospitable landscape and lack of warriors needed to fortify defensive positions, this venture was abandoned, leaving the rivers of flame and smoke-filled shores to the machines alone. Back in the north, another endeavor was about to take place to solidify relations between old enemies. In No Man's Land, between the Clanlands and Karja territory, an embassy to return Marshal Fashav to his homeland was made, a pivotal step to cementing peaceful relations between the Grove and Meridian. Unfortunately, this meeting was delayed due to the absence of the Sky Clan delegates, leaving Aloy to cross the gates of the fortress, inadvertently causing tensions to rise in an already delicate circumstance. Luckily, Marshal Fashav was able to ensure cooler heads prevailed, and with a declaration from Sun Priest Studious Wadis, the embassy began, but would soon grind to a halt. On the horizon, mounted on machines, Regalla and her lancers made their presence known. The exile chastised Hekaro's marshals for treating with the enemy, and for their crimes, she sentenced them to death. Arrows of fire rained from above while machines charged into the fray. Rebels fell, but Karja and Hekaro's faithful would feel the full weight of this ambush. Captain Nozar and his men would perish, along with Marshal Fashav, after claiming the lives of several would-be assailants. Caught in the crossfire, Varl and Aloy would take up arms with the defenders, but they would still suffer significant losses. More marshals would fall, and Kotalo would lose his arm in the gears of a bristleback as he met its charge head-on. The slaughter would only subside when Regalla's champion, Grudda, requested the honor of slaying Aloy and Varl himself. With the request granted, he dove from the cliffs, glided to the battlefield, and quickly defeated the Nora Brave. His success would not continue, as Aloy would end him soon after. This would earn the two their lives, as the challenge had been honorable and Regalla's message of war had been made crystal clear. She and her forces would take their leave, fully prepared to make their next move against Hekaro. The loss of his marshals would leave Hekaro without the means to effectively govern his tribe, and would need to recruit more in their stead. A rite that would be sure to draw the attention of Regalla. With the dangers staging the cool route presented, the Sky Clan commander, Tenakth, refused to send his representatives to participate, instead content to bide his time behind the towering bulwark. And so, when Aloy came face to face with the chief in search of Gaia's subfunction Aether, a deal was struck. If Aloy, along with the maimed marshal, Kotalo, could bring the Sky Clan back into the fold and help protect the proceedings of the Cool Route, she would be granted access to the chamber which held her prize. The two would confront Tenakth, but found him unwilling to comply. Only after defeating rebels in the area and acquiring a Tremortusk cannon was Aloy able to exploit a weakness in the ancient stone. Ignoring Aloy's warnings, Tenakth could do nothing as his walls crumbled, forcing him into submission. With representatives from the Sky Clan ready to compete, the Cool Route could take place. Despite Hekaro's best efforts to shore up defenses and protect those in the arena, Regalla's attack, though expected, surpassed anything the tribe could have prepared for. Machines charged the ancient ruin, attacking Hekaro's faithful. But just when it seemed the defenses might actually hold, a rock breaker tunneled beneath the arena, wreaking havoc, allowing rebel forces to pour into the structure's interior. Among the chaos, as Aloy battled a rebel Slitherfang, Regalla made a direct route to her former leader. After the beast was brought down, Aloy found Hekaro locked in combat in the heart of the grove. Thankfully, in a moment where it seemed Regalla would finally seize her revenge, Kotalo and Aloy would save him and drive the enemy out. Those who had proved their mettle against machine and rebels alike would be made the chief's newest marshals. Holding up her end of the deal and more, Hekaro would release Aloy from his service and fulfill his promise. She was then able to claim Aether in the chamber beneath the throne room and continue her mission. In this moment, Hekaro's vision returned for all to see, proving his mission of peace among the tribe was the true will of the Ten. Along with Hekaro and Tenakth, Aloy's influence would be felt by the other clan commanders. Aloy would influence who would lead the desert Tenakth, with either Draka or Yara assuming control after their confrontation came to a head before the gates of the Vanquished. A fight to the death, but one that would ultimately spare lives from a long drawn-out struggle for power. She would also help former squad mate of Hekaro and commander of the Lowland clan, Ateka, resolve the issue of a poisoned water supply. Crimson red blood choke brought on by the efforts of rebels to pollute the waterways leading the Thorn Marsh with the fluids of fallen machines. Eventually, Regalla would lead one final charge against the Grove, a massive siege of man and machine, one without aid, that would surely have led to the fall of Hekarro. Thankfully, Aloy would take flight over the battlefield on a Sunwing, delivering an ancient EMP from a fallen Horus, rendering the rebels' greatest weapons useless. With the tides of battle turned, Tenakth loyalists would defeat the rebels, while Aloy would be the one to defeat Regalla in single combat. Her fate is left up to the player, either being ended then and there by Kotallo's spear, or falling in combat to Zenith Spectres deep in their base. With these threats to the tribe now gone, Hekarro has returned to his mission of peace among his peoples, and war against the machines that would wish them harm. Though Fashav never saw his dream of real peace among the Karja and Tenakth in his lifetime, this lives on after his passing. Rather than another embassy at Barren Light, a delegation led by Kotallo has been dispatched to meet with the Sun King directly as they head to Meridian itself. A moment between the two tribes that has never happened before, hopefully achieving a newfound unity between the two most powerful tribes on the continent that we know of could prove vital in giving humanity its best chance against the coming threat of Nemesis. And that brings our journey to an end. If you'd like to see more content like this, likes and shares are always appreciated, and if you're hungry for more Horizon lore, consider subscribing and checking out the rest of our library. Also consider joining our Discord and our channel membership program to check out exclusive content on the lore of Horizon. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep questing.